Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Adenantera Dwicaksono. I'm a lecturer in the City and Regional Planning Department at ITB. Today, in this session, I will present our work on progress in estimating the economic impacts of disasters, a panel data study of disaster in the Java region of Indonesia. This is a collaboration works between myself, Adenantera Dwicaksono, Yanuar Rahmanto, Saut, Aritua, Sagala, and Adiwan, Fahlan, Aritenang. And for the presentation, here's the outline of my presentations. I will start with the background and some of the discussion about literatures about the economic impacts of disasters. I will pose the research question, and I will discuss a little bit the data and variable, especially the disaster variable that we use in this study, and the statistical analysis. We will report on the result and some discussion about the findings. Yeah, this is a work on progress. It's been a while. We started with the study since 2000, probably 2016. The problem is with the data, disaster data that we were working on. So I really welcome any criticism, any input for the study, so that we can move our team. We can proceed to improve this work. Okay. For the background, as we are aware that Indonesia is one of the most disaster-prone countries in the world, with high mortality risk from the multiple hazard. And then among all regions in Indonesia, Java region has importance in the national economy. So because Java regions contribute more than 50% of national GDP, and it is also the most populated region in the country. About 60% of Indonesia's population reside in Java regions. But also Java region also known as a region that have high intensity of natural disaster. And what we are concerned is that because of its importance, so a large-scale disaster event may also cause catastrophic consequences, not only in the Java but also in the national economy. To give you a review about the literature of economic impact of disasters, the study or analysis of economic impacts of natural disaster have received growing interest among disaster scholars. However, the empirical study seems to be inconclusive. So the economic impact can be distinguished between the short-term impacts and the long-term impacts. In the short-term impact, natural disaster may cause the disruption to the economies due to the direct and indirect damages. Because some of the natural disaster may cause the loss of labor, loss of capital, and the following, the cascading consequences is that we might lose the ability to produce to produce to the economy. In the long-term sense, the impact of disaster also less clear. Disaster may cause long-term negative consequences, basically because of the damage or destruction of the not only the physical capital, but also human capital. The infrastructure will be destroyed, damaged, and then human capital also can be reduced due to loss of life and so on. And more importantly, large-scale disaster, natural disaster also bear like high course, the high opportunity cost, because when dealing with the large scale natural disaster, public resources often get diverted to respond the consequences of disaster. And also, if the country of the region is known as to have a frequent disaster, it may raise the uncertainty, a sense of uncertainty of the future, the economic future of the region. And in terms of the research, most empirical studies in the international sense is mostly cross-country analysis, and analysis at the sub-national level is very limited. So that's why these studies attempt to contribute to fill this gap. There are two research questions that we want to investigate. The first one is we want to test a hypothesis about whether natural disaster associated with changes in GRDP, gross regional domestic product, as the measure of the region or district level economy. And we want to know about how will different type of and scale about disaster may affect gross regional domestic product, especially at the kabupaten and kota levels. The data that we use is kabupaten and kota level in Java. The time period maybe 2007, 2015. Disaster data. The raw disaster data was were retrieved from the Indonesian Disaster Information and Data (DB). It was we still need to clean up the data, and then gross regional domestic product will retrieve from, and other district level data will retrieve from World Bank's Indodapur economic and social indicators. Our main outcome variables is there are 4 variables: the total GRDP and GRDP on manufacturing, and then GRDP on agriculture, forestry, and fishing, and GRDP on trade, hotel, and restaurant. So the last 3 variables represent the major economic sectors in Java region. And for disaster variables, we start with all disaster. We didn't distinguish between different type of disaster. So, and then from all disaster, we also create the major disaster. For major disaster, we choose the disaster that have the number of affected people exceed 2,000 people. So I know that this is arbitrary, so probably in our discussion we can discuss about this. And then all this from the all disaster, we categorize into geological, that include earthquakes, volcanic eruption, and tsunamis, and hydrometeorological disaster. Includes flood, landslide, hurricane, tidal waves, seashore abrasion, and drought. And in each category, we create 2 variables, all variables, and then only major geological disaster. And at the end, our measure that we use is not the number of disaster, but the number of affected people per disaster event. So that's our measure for disaster. Why did we choose this? Because we thought that this will capture the magnitude of the disaster. For the statistical analysis, we use the fixed effect models. We also perform Hausmann tests to ensure that the fixed effect model is the proper model for the estimation. the regression is the regression equation is written as shown in the screen, and I will pay more attention about the disaster variable.
Excuse me, but
yes,
already halfway. Please carry on.
Okay, yeah. So for the term DIT is disaster measure, the number of disaster affected people per number of disaster event, and then MDIT is the major disaster measure. We include the lag variable and the 2-year lag variable for this measure to capture. We hypothesize that a major disaster will have like kind of like long-lasting effect to the economy. Okay, so I will move on to the results. So there are three main results. The first one is when we regress using the all disaster and variables. As we can, if we regress with the total GRDP, there is no significant effect on GRDP. So all disaster variable has no significant association. But if we take a look in more detail based on the specific sectors, we can see that even though the number of affected people per disaster for all kind of disaster is not associated with the GRDP in the manufacturing, but the 2-year lag of the number of affected people per disaster in major disaster have negative impact on manufacturing. We couldn't find for the agriculture as well as for the trade sector. And for the next result, we use the geological disaster, which include earthquake, volcanic eruption, and tsunamis, and so on. As you can see, for the total GRDP, no relationship were observed. And interestingly, we couldn't also find the significant impact of the disaster, geological disaster on manufacturing. But we found like positive association between the number of affected people per disaster with 1-year lag variables. And I will discuss the possible explanations because it's not intuitive. And we found negative effect of geological disaster without the lag variable on trade. And the third result is we use the hydrometeorological disasters variables. For the total GRDP, we couldn't find any effect. And if we look at in the manufacturing GRDP on manufacturing, so we found the negative effect of the number of affected people per disaster of the major hydrometeorological disaster with the 2-year lag. We couldn't find any significant effect on agriculture as well as in trade. So to sum up, first we couldn't find there's no significant impacts of disaster of total on total GRDP in all disaster measure. I mean, if we did not decompose the disaster into different categories, and major disaster appear to have long-term negative impact on GRDP manufacturing. Geological disasters associated with the immediate negative impact on trade, GRDP on trade. But the puzzling result is the positive association between major geological disaster and GRDP on agriculture. And of all major disaster, major hydrometeorological disaster seems contributing the long-lasting negative impact on GRDP on manufacturing. So for the initial discussion, why we have the like long-lasting impact of major hydrometeorological disaster on manufacturing, because major flood cause major damage on capital, factor and asset of factories, and then flood also occurs more frequently than compared to other disaster, and usually it occurs in densely populated areas. The second point is that geological disaster were associated with immediate negative impact on GRDP on trade, because usually the geological disaster, which represent which include earthquake and volcanic eruption, cause large-scale physical damage, loss of life, injuries, and probably also affect other well-being related problems. So this create the immediate consequences on reduced economic activities on trades. But this also activity also have the ability to bounce back quickly. And the positive relationship between the 1 year lag major geological disaster on agriculture sectors might be because for several reasons. The first one is that usually the geological disaster occurred less.
3 minutes to go.
Yes, occurred less compared to other disaster, but it caused more damage in almost all sectors. It might lead to temporary shift of economic activities to agricultural activities, probably. So increased activities in agriculture, and probably also it's also part of the relief and recovery process, and increasing government spending on food. That's one possible explanation, probably. Okay, yeah, that's our findings and our initial discussion, and I welcome any comment on feedback on this. And we are aware that the study is still have like limitations. First, about disaster measures, about whether the variable that we use are better measure for capturing the magnitude impact of the disaster. And we are aware with the that the regression model still needs to be, some refinements to include more time variant covariance. Okay, that's all my presentations. Thank you.
Thank you. Very interesting topic and result. I saw that the one burning question from Esa Asahid from UGM. How do you deal with kabupaten or kota proliferation pemekaran in the dataset? Please respond.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mas Esa. Yeah, for the kabupaten, there are some kabupaten in the dataset that being proliferated. So one approach that we use is that we combine the data, the district after the proliferation. So we treat them as the one unit entity. So that's the what we do for right at the moment. Yeah. So I know that this is not perfect, but what we want is about the economic impacts of the disaster. So after some discussion, we decided that okay, let's just combine the proliferated districts.
And there is another question from Dwicaksono of PIE, UI. Oops, it's going up. I thought the use of lag-dependent variable in the model can cause bias in the parameter. Is there any consideration on using GMM or system GMM? What's your guess?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we also discuss in our team is that we know some disaster also have the like long-lasting, what we hypothesize is long-lasting effects. So we tried some measures, and some research also using the strategies to include the lag variables. And yeah, if we haven't thought about the possibilities to incorporate that GMM or system GMM, but thank you for the input. Yeah.
Okay, and the next question from Barukati Minawo. Your research recommends the shift activities economics to agriculture activities, but based on other research, agricultural activities also got affected on the disaster. What's your recommendation?
Okay, so it's not a recommendation. We tried to find the explanation why agriculture, the effect of disaster positive on agriculture sectors. There probably some bias is going on here that we need to deal with the specification, but the agriculture activities is not just about probably people from BPS can help us to explain this, but I think that when the measurement of about the GRDP, especially in agriculture, it's not just about the number of agricultural products being produced, but also being consumed and by the people. So it is possible that it's not about shifting to activities, but in the process of a disaster, when there is no when the economic activities were affected by the disaster, agriculture activities, not only by like using the cultivate on land, but also other agriculture related activities might also use as the source of income or economic activities.
Thank you. Is there any other question? We still have time, about 3-4 minutes. Please open your microphone and video if you would like to ask directly. Going once, going twice. If not, let me just briefly tell my own experience about this. Maybe you also remember when it was a big disaster tsunami in Aceh province. It was affected a lot the province of the disaster, but there is also another economic disaster after that, where the inflation rate came up to 60%, which is
Very high.
not easy for the locals to cope with. Although now they are shifting from their original professionals into others to work in the post disaster reconstruction. But still, it was not easy for the local economy. While the international human aid workers, they are enjoying lots of these benefits with less expensive groceries locally. But then they also affecting a lot of people, especially the locals. That's my brief closing into this presentation. Please give the appreciation to the presenters. You may want to virtually applause, or you may applause. Present. Thank you very much, Pa Adenantera.
Yeah, thank you very much for any question and comments.
Thank you. And on the next presenter, I will invite Ibu Barokati Iminawah from Institut, who will present the presentation on farmers' adaptation strategies to climate change and rice production. It is excuse me, it is going to be an interesting presentation. Please, Ibu.
Okay, thank you for. Is my voice clear? Is my voice clear? You can hear my voice.
Nice and clear. Please go ahead.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Before I will, my name is Barokatu Minallah, but my name is too difficult maybe to pronounce, so you can call me Mrs. Aa. Everybody call me Aa.
Okay, that's very different. It's very easy to.
Okay, my name is Barokatu Minallah. I'm a student from Universitas 11 Maret, and my team is Mrs. Junastiti Purwaningsi, Tribulianingsi, and Ahmad Dorabi, and I will present my paper with the title Farmers' Adaptation Strategies to Climate Change and Rice Production. That's why I'm asking about the previous presenter, because it's connected with my research on agriculture sector. Okay. Okay, the background of this research, because greenhouse gas emission are the leading cause of the climate change, and Indonesia is the fourth country to produce greenhouse gases in the world. So it will make Indonesia vulnerable to the climate change, and indicator of the climate change is increase in air temperature during rainfall, and climate change also make a lot of disaster like flooding, drought, and another disaster. And there are a lot of impact of climate change on human life, especially in agricultural sector. So when the previous presenter say that we can shift the economic activities to the agricultural sector, but the agricultural sector also impact gather impact of the disaster, also impact on the on climate change, like changes in food production and losses in livelihood due to the expansion of agricultural pests, the destruction of production supporting infrastructure, and so on. And it mainly affect group who cannot cope with the risk of it may cause, for example, free farmers in area who live limited land and labor. And to mitigate or to minimize the impact of climate change to the agricultural sector, so we have to implement adaptation. That we know that adaptation is a process to improve people's ability to face future uncertainty and conducted by changing behavior to respond to long-term changes. And there are a lot of agricultural adaptation options. According to Smith and Skinner, there are two options like technological adaptation, such as developing new crop varieties, and production practice, such as diversification of crop varieties, changes in production intensity. And this research use this kind of adaptation. This is based on the previous study and based on the kind of adaptation that had been carried out of the farmer in Banyumas. The type of adaptation, such as use of the best varieties, monoculture and intercropping, irrigation access, shift in planting time. Rice farmer in Banyumas also raise livestock, utilize yard, take advantage of the Javanese calendar in farming, and then change the use of fertilizer and pesticides as appropriate. And we are grouping the type of adaptation into two groups: complete adaptation, that farmers who apply more than two types of adaptation, and half adaptation, that farmers usually apply one or two types of adaptation. Irrigation access didn't count into this group because irrigation access because farmers cannot choose the access of irrigation that they can access. So irrigation access becomes a dummy variable. Dummy variable count one when farmers having access technical, semi-technical, and simple irrigation, and zero when farmer have an access to rain-fed irrigation. And the farmers' adaptation in coping with climate change will expected to improve production factor and will increase production. So a lot of variety of adaptation option from this research to examine the effect of climate change adaptation option on agricultural production. And the selection of the correct type of adaptation will encourage increased production. And this research is essential to do as an effort to achieve four main goals of the Sustainable Development Goals. First one, eradicate all forms of poverty, ending hunger, ensure a healthy life, and then climate change management. This study was conducted in Banyumas Regency because this is a vulnerable area to disaster related to climate change, and Banyumas Regency also one of the rice producing center in Central Java, and the government of the Banyumas concerned to the climate change. And adaptation strategies in rice farming are therefore strongly required because rice is a type of plant that requires specific climate and land conditions. So when climate change, it will need adaptation. And climate, type of land, and type of variety are three essential things in rice cultivation, which must be kept sustainable and mutually supportive. The methodology of this research, the unit analysis of this research is rice farmer, and the target population based on the fertility level, because based on the different result of the fertility to the adaptation, we choose Lumbir district that is infertile area and Sumbang district that is a fertile area. We take 121 farmers become a respondent, and we use ordinary least square and moderated regression analysis to test whether adaptation option and irrigation and another production factor affected rice production. And the result of this research, you can see that in Sumbang district, it means that this is in fertile area. The majority of the farmer implement half adaptation, but in Lumbir district that they are in infertile area, the majority they implement complete adaptation. Lumbir district is in infertile area. They have a limited access to irrigation because all of them only have rain-fed irrigation, and it will make them more vulnerable to the climate change. So this make they encourage them to implement a lot of adaptation. But in Sumbang district, because they are in fertile area and they have a better access to water, to irrigation, they are less vulnerable to the climate change. So majority of them only implement half adaptation. And the table 3, we can see that the average use of production factor by adaptation group, there are two production factors, the statistically significant difference between farmer who implement complete adaptation and half adaptation, that land and tractor is a statistically significant difference. And we can see that land in half adaptation is wider than in complete adaptation. And also tractor, it means that when farmers in vulnerable area, but in limited resources, so they implement adaptation, but with the cost, affordable cost technology. Okay, this is the result of the regression. We can see that land, seed, labor, and tractor are statistically significant to the rice production because farmers, agriculture in this research is conventional agriculture. So they are depend on land, seed, labor, especially, and tractor. Tractor only just have the production, but they are rely on labor. Fertilizer and pesticide didn't statistically significant because based on research, but because mostly farmer only use urea fertilizer that contain nitrogen. Rare of farmer implement another kind of fertilizer like
Excuse me,
phosphor.
please. 10 minutes to go.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Kalium and another kind of fertilizer. That is make imbalance of use of fertilizer, and based on the previous studies, that imbalance of fertilizer will make the lack of nutrition of the land. And technology adaptation, statistically significant in MRI, it means that technology adaptation moderate by production factor, and interaction of adaptation option and seed and interaction of adaptation option and labor, they are significant. It means that there are different impact of seed and labor to the rice production between farmer who implement complete adaptation and half adaptation. Negative sign, it means that complete adaptation have a lower impact of seed and labor to the rice production. It is because of the farmer who implement complete adaptation, majority are in infertile area. It means they are less infertile area, limited access of irrigation, and then more vulnerable, and it will make them lower production capacity. And this is the from the production factor in table 4 that production from farmer who implement complete production lower than farmer who implement half production. This is not because of they implement adaptation, but because of the vulnerable of climate change and the characteristic of land and the limited of the access of irrigation. So the conclusion of this research that farmers who apply half adaptation are less vulnerable of climate change, and farmers who implement complete adaptation are more vulnerable of climate change. And vulnerability to climate change may result in lower production capacity. And the other type of adaptation applied by farmers is adjusting to the vulnerability to climate change they are facing. And access to technical, semi-technical, and civil irrigation need to be expanded. And the last one, the use of production input is an essential factor in quantity and quality, not only quantity, but farmers also need to pay attention to the quality of the production factor. And it is necessary to balance the use of fertilizer, not only use of the urea fertilizer, but use another kind of fertilizer like kalium, phosphor, and another kind of fertilizer. And the farmer also can apply the organic fertilizer. Okay, that's all my presentation. Thank you for your attention. Okay, time to moderator.
Thank you. Very interesting, Ms. Sarah. And also, you still have 6 minutes to go for the presentation, but we will invite for question. Then we will have 15 minutes. Yes, I think better to stop share. So some people who ask question can show their video. Any question to Ms. A, please? No question. This is a very difficult time of the day. I hope people are not getting asleep in the front of their laptops or phones. Yeah. Okay. If there is no questions, I would like to appreciate the research and presentation that Saha already been delivered, and this is truly important, especially for the food security. If the farmers could implement to full adaptation, also they would want to find any other way out, for instance by providing some folders if they don't have the irrigation, so they can have the reserve of water for the prolonged drought, for instance, so they can keep cultivate their land during the dry season, or if there is any sieve of the seasonal or climate, especially during El Nino and La Nina, like this time. There is a question written on the chat from Pak Catur, Ms. A, who is asking, I wonder if you also include extension the people in the analysis. Is that the case or not?
Mr. Catur, how are you? I'm your student in UGM. I include extension, but in previous studies, I research about the effect of the PPL extension to the option to the how farmer choose the option of adaptation. So the knowledge of the farmer, how knowledge of the farmer effect to the how farmer implement or how farmer choose the type of adaptation in the previous studies.
Correct. Okay, cannot on this one because that is also important variable.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Any other question? If there is no, so please give a big applause to Miss Aa. Thank you very much for a very fruitful presentation. And the third presentation, I would like to invite Pak Felix, Ibu Ahsana, and Ibu Esta, who will present the food security and poverty during pandemic COVID-19 Indonesia case study. Please welcome to the all presenters. The time is yours.
Thank you, Pak Firza, for opportunity. I would like to share my presentation. Wait. Oh, I couldn't see it. Okay. Wait. No. Wait. Sorry. Make a mistake.
It's okay, Pak. Take the time.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous.
Take a deep breath. It is very expensive to breathe right now, Pak.
Okay,
Trust
thank
me.
you, Pak.
Trust me.
Okay, thank you, Pak Firza, for the opportunity. I would like to introduce my team. My name is Felix Wisnuhandoyo. I'm affiliated with the Economic Research Center LIPI, and the second one is Ibu Esta Lestari. She is also affiliated with Economic Research Center, and now and Pajajaran University Bandung as well. And then the third one is Ibu Asana Hidayatina. She is also my colleagues in Economic Research Center LIPI. Now today, I would like to present our paper with the title is Food Security and Poverty During Pandemic COVID-19, Indonesia Case Study. Okay, let me introduce what is the background of our study. The first one is the COVID-19 pandemic has forced almost all countries to implement at least the partial restriction to lockdown, hamper social and economic activity as effort to contain virus spread. You know that that because of the PSBB or social scale large restriction that was happened in the 2020 in the March until almost the third quarter of 2020 have a big impact on the economic activity, because that's so business activities and non-business activities should be reduced their activities, and as well for delay. You know, that's many transportation delay, and including trade and international trade along the borders. And we have to know that we know that the pandemic also led to the global recession and push people losing their job and or their livelihood, and the subsequently reduced income and lower access to food channel, impact of the pandemic on the poverty. And this what the study wants to the study attempts to fill the gap by describing the extent to which household food security in Indonesia during the peak periods of the pandemic until the early adjustment. And the second one about the background is before we see that what the difference at all state and OECD in 2020 said that the worst worrying impact is on the demand side. Yes, that's the big problem because many people losing their job get less payment sometimes. Sometimes they couldn't do any business. So, not only income loss, the opportunity loss also. Sometimes we have to face the human loss as well. And the Labor Day in swine 2020 say that the COVID undermined the food security either directly or indirectly. That impact of locking household incomes and physical access to food. What the data and methods? Okay, we did the survey on the September in September and October 2020. We're using online methods. We are using the probabilistic sampling methods, and then by the data survey, we got the respondents' average age is 36 years, and the households member for both rural and urban on average, and then 42% were household breadwinners as our respondents, and the 76% respondent have a formal job, and 84% respondent have a higher education. We know that the problem is the online method is because we couldn't control the respondents, so that's why maybe it could be that our bias in this situation maybe. But let me see about the result. The methods we are using ordinary least square and ordered logit, and then that we are using the starter program to running the data survey. And then what is research model? The research model is we have two models. The first one is index as a dependent variable, and then we control urban, formal job, education, household member, household expenditure, poverty, food access, farming, livestock, and consumption strategy. And the other one is we put also the social protection program into the model. On the other one, the second model, we try to know to exercise how it does impact on the poverty. So with the similar in the control variable, but we add index into the model on the poverty model. That's we treat this similar, but on the second model we add the index in control variable. Then let me introduce to you about the variables. That's a food security index. We have 4 categories. And the first one is a food insecure with hunger and severe. And then second one is food insecurity with hunger and a moderate. And the third one insecure without hunger. And the fourth category is food secure, which means that they have no problem with access and afford to buy a food. And on the poverty, we are using dummy variable, poor and not poor. That's all. And we can see that's a regional and a formal status job, education level, and then Some of them are the dummy variable, and some one or two variable are a category. This is a category, and this one numeric, and this one is numeric, and number is numeric, and this that's about our research model. Then we move to the result and discussion. I would like to invite my colleagues, Ibu Asana, to deliver this result and discussion. Ibu Asana, as I offer to you.
Thank you, Pak Felix. Now let's move on to result and discussion. First, a short of a socio-demographic characteristic of respondent, food security index, and household behavior. So LIPI managed to collect more than 1,400 respondents whose data was collected based on the level of household information from 32 provincial respondents. So the sample include of adult age 30 to 39, 44%, male gender 57%, married 78%, and well-educated 84%. Next. So next.
Wait. Sorry, I think I have a problem with. Sorry. This one, right?
So the result indicate that most households are still able to access food and food availability is still sufficient. So still insecure food condition during the March and September is 64%. So next. And for household income source, more than 1/3 of the respondents are coming from employers in government sector, followed by private sector. Next. Okay. So the COVID-19 pandemic is affecting economic activity in Indonesia. The survey results show that households in urban and rural area withdraw the saving to meet food needs, but 48% and 44% respectively. Furthermore, 31 and 26% of respondents in rural and urban area had to buy a local food product. Therefore, borrow food and sell agricultural commodity is the least coping strategy during the COVID-19 outbreaks. Next. And the consumption behavior. Next.
Sorry.
And the consumption behavior in response to COVID-19 show that cooking at home more frequently is the most answer. Almost 70% of households are cooking more at home and dining out less. In addition, the second answer of eating habit during the COVID-19 pandemic is cooking from processed or packaged or frozen food more often, is about 33% in total. So the household prefer frozen meal to keep them in the kitchen rather than daily for takeout. So the household buy a raw or processed food by online more frequently. Mainly in the urban area is about 27% and rural area is 12%. And the next table shows the dietary health changes associated with the COVID-19. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, people prioritize consuming fruit and vegetable. So about 68% choose to increase the consumption of fruit, and 67 respondents increase the consumption of vegetable as the majority of the answer in consuming a healthy food. So that is a short result and discussion of food security index and household behavior. The next slide will be delivered by Bapak Felix. Please.
Okay, thank you, Bu Asana. I would like to let you know about our regression result. That's by using the OLS, we got the formal job education, household expenditure, and food access have a positive impact on the food security index. On the other hand, that we face that household member and consumption strategy have a negative impact on the food security index. So for the next result, and we are using the ordered logic, that because the food security index is variable by the category. So that's why we tried also as well with the ordered logic to know, but the results are consistent with the OLS. Compare with OLS to the ordered logic. The results are consistent that the formal job, education, and household expenditure and food access statistically positive, significant on the food security index. On the other hand, that like household member consumption strategy have a negative impact on the food security index. What happened on the poverty? Okay, we will see that the poverty is like reverse impact, like that urban index, which formal job, education, food access have a negative impact on, as well household expenditure have negative impact on the poverty, which means that if you are in the urban, you have the higher index. Food security, you have the respondents, have a formal job in education and a higher expenditure, and the food access. Food access is insignificant. They tend to have they live in the above of poverty line. On the other hand, however, we'll see that the social protection, and livestock, positively impact on poverty, which means that the respondent who do animal farming and get social protection program tend to live in the poor condition. The result also consistent with by logic, similar, not much, that's similar, exactly, consistent that urbans index, formal jobs, education, and household expenditure have negative impact on the poverty. On the other hand, like social protection have a positive impact, which means that if you got social protection, if the respondent got social protection, maybe the respondent struggle on the poor situation. What the result and what to discuss about our research is the study provide the new picture household consumption behavior and food security during the peak period of the pandemic. And during the, food security in Indonesia have not shown significant changes. The studies such as Africa, where impact on the food security have not been felt during the research periods. That's because we did the research on in September and October, and as well as like the funding. Global recession has a significant impact on decreasing income and increasing poverty, like Bauer and Surya Hadi said for Indonesia, but the impact differ by economic activity and household. I will try to explain that the lockdown measure in line with the Zolman and et al. And Amari lockdown measure the small impact on the wage-related activity and farming activity. But in terms of food security, household relying on non-farm business, poor household, those who school-age children, urban areas experience a heavy shock. And the pandemic has impact also on poverty, many immediate several variables. The household food security is a negative significant related to the poverty. However, moreover, the most important things to mitigate poverty is social assistance. Okay, next, what our conclusion? Our conclusion have three. The first one is the COVID-19 pandemic forces people to change their consumption habit and behavior, like Ibu Asana said, that they tend to eat the healthy food, cook food itself, do farming animal and vegetable, and prepare many strategy to fulfill their food needs. And the second one is the household food security index is influenced by several independent variables such as formal employment, education, household member, household expenditures, household access, and consumption strategy. The third one is COVID-19 pandemic has made people live below the poverty line, where the urban status, food security indices, education, and household expenditure have statistically significant negative a negative impact on poverty. However, that's our study have limitations. Let me let you know. One, the limitation on study and survey is inability to control all respondents to meet all the criteria of randomness. And as using the mobile phone, the respondents are mainly those who have access, tend to skew toward the groups of formal jobs, and non-probabilistic sampling, the result may be underestimated. And the impact of the pandemic may be small, that because the household still have resources to fill their food consumption. That's why if we do the resurvey maybe this year's, the result may be more difference, because there's a lot of people maybe they already used their resources to survive. Thank you for your attention. I would like to invite everyone to constructive comments and questions. Thank you and appreciate it. I over to Pak Firza. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Felix and Ibu Hasan. Very, very interesting presentation. I believe this is came out from hard work of data gathering and analysis. And I don't need to conclude it again, because you already made at the last of your presentation the three important conclusions. And everyone agrees that the pandemic is affecting all of us in any way on our life behavior, and there is no old fashioned behavior anymore. Any questions to the two presenters from the audience? Please, welcome. I hope everyone fully understand of what's presented, or fully confused of what's been presented. That's two meanings of this, if there is no discussion. Anyway, it's been a good result of the research and study. Let's give the appreciation to the presenters and to the researchers for the very good result and important for having the decision about it. Let's give a big applause to the presenters.
Yes, me. Pak Firza, Pak Adenantera raised his hand. Maybe
Oh, okay.
some
Okay. Sorry, I
valuable
couldn't
inputs.
see it. It's small. Okay. Okay. Excuse me. Please,
Problem.
please, Pak Adenantera.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's very thorough and comprehensive presentation, and I also quite enjoyed the presentation. But I have some question. I know that probably this is the limitation of the study. So about the variable of being poor, it said that it's binary variable. So it is based on the self-report uh, responses from the respondent, or you create this variable based on some objective variable, for example, based on income or so on.
Okay, Pak.
Please, Pak. Please,
Okay.
respond, Pak Felix.
Yeah, thank you, Pak. For Pak Adenantera for your question. Yeah, we create the data by their answer, their feedback, the respondent feedback, you know, but when we categorize the respondent poverty below and above the poverty line, we are using BPS standard with 454,000 rupiah, around the 40,000 rupiah per person. Yeah, in the household. Sorry, I mean, yeah, that's my answer, my feedback to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Hope that the answer to your question, Pak Adenantera.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very interested in conducting the online survey and asking that this kind of difficult question. So that's why I'm asking that question. Yeah.
Right. Okay, that's already successful one. Okay. Any other burning question? If there is no, so we will move on to the next presenter, the last but not the least. But again, I would like to give the appreciation to the presenter, Pak Felix and Ibu Asana. Let's give a big applause. Okay, I would like to invite Ibu Silviana Taniu of the University of Gorontalo, who will present the institutional access and household poverty of captured fisheries in Indonesia. And we have luxury of time. We have around 42 minutes for this last presentation, or maybe we can have another discussion at the end. Please, Ibu Silviana, time is yours. I cannot hear you, Ibu Silviana. Please go ahead, Ibu.
apa suara saya sudah kedengaran?
Ya, sudah sekarang, Bu. Please make a presentation on the PowerPoint slide.
Okay.
Slideshow mode. Nah, okay, good. Please, Bu. Floor is yours.
Thank you for the opportunity given to me. My name is Silviana from Universitas Gorontalo. The title of my presentation is Institutional Access and Household Poverty of Capture Fishery in Indonesia. The fishery sector has long been developing and has become an important sector in economic activity in many countries, where there are millions of people in the world who depend on this sector for their livelihoods or source of livelihood. The data from Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations state the fish or fishery products are the most traded type of food in the world today. In 2016, approximately 35% of the world fish production entered international trade in some form for human consumption or non-edible purposes. The 60 million tons live weight equivalent of total fish and fish product exported in 2016 represented 245% increase since 1976. During the same period, world trade in fish and fish product also grew significantly in terms of value, with export increasing from $8 billion in 1976 to $143 billion in 2016. In the last 40 years, this figure has grown much faster than export from developed countries. The increase in the volume of fishery production in fact leaves the fact that there are nearly 40 million people in the world involved in the fishery sector, and almost 90% to operate small-scale fishery activities and live in low and middle income countries. These include self-employment fishers who own the boat and fishing gear, crew members who are contracted by the boat owner to operate the vessel, as well as households involved in fishing. FAO estimated that 20% of those who work in fishery globally have income of less than $1 per day. Some literature describes fishing community as the poorest of the poor. Fishermen's income generally depends on catch size, which is highly variable, uneven, and unpredictable. In many places, traditional fishermen tend to be poor and happier than this with other occupation, and fishing is considered a job with a lower social status in a society. The relationship between fishery and poverty has often been debated by experts, but the debate has only focused on the economic aspect, where fishermen live on low income, and the material dimension of poverty in the fishery sector is still central to defining and measuring development. Although fishery make an undeniable contribution to nutrition and food security, the relationship between fishery and poverty elevation is complex and unclear, especially nation and household level study on the contribution of fishery to poverty reduction. Bene and friend explained that poverty in small-scale fishery is not only caused by low productivity, but acute economic and institutional marginalization, which caused the majority of fishermen to be denied access to economic institutions such as an efficient credit market or a decent labor market. Access to this institution is economically very costly for the poor. Without this access, fishermen remain unable to achieve the minimum level of investment that will allow them to generate greater financial return. Fishermen who don't qualify as poor because their income exceeds the poverty line may have a very low education, don't have access to proper water and sanitation, can catch fish using traditional boats or work as labor fishermen. According to the data from the Central Bureau of Statistics Republic of Indonesia, the number of poor people in Indonesia is 28.07 million people, and 25.14% were estimated to live in coastal area. To overcome poverty, the government of Indonesia made program with a community approach or household participation, namely education subsidy, scholarship, conditional cash transfers, community empowerment program, credit for small and medium enterprise, infrastructure development project, and social safety nets, including subsidized direct cash assistance and healthy insurance. Especially for the fishery, to overcome fishermen's poverty, the government makes a program to increase the institutional capacity of coastal community in the form of counseling, education and training, seed grant, fishing gear, business financing grants, and access to credit conducted through kooperasi and business group, kelompok usaha bersama OKUB. Apart from the many empirical study on poverty, this research tries to fill the gap by measuring the poverty of capture fishery household in Indonesia with a monetary and multidimensional approach. Data and methodology. Source of data. Sample data of capture fishery business household in Indonesia, which conduct a household income survey of agriculture by BPS 2013. The number of household selected as sample in the survey was 28.779 rumah tangga perikanan tangkap. The survey is part of the agriculture census, which is conducted every 10 years. Measuring income poverty. Fishermen households are said to be poor if they have a per capita income below the poverty line and vice versa. Income is the total amount of household income from fishing business, which is calculated as the value of all fish caught, sold or unsold, minus production cost, income from business outside fishing activity, including land and capital rent, as well as income, other passive and transfer, salary of worker in the fishing sector, and salary for worker outside fishing activity, including income from all activity of household member who are employed and self-employed. Misalnya multidimensional poverty. The multidimensional poverty refers to the Akira-Foster method, which is measured from the dimension of education, health, standard of living, and household asset. The study adds an employment dimension with an indicator of informality following Ansori Yusuf and Sumner, which includes the employment dimension, informality, unemployment, and underemployment. Also following Samartian Silva, who includes informality and unemployment as part of the dimension of household asset and living standard, then analyze the overlap between consumption and multidimensional poverty. In this study, the indicator of employment dimension is the job status that generate demand include income is as a labor fisherman and using traditional boat or to fishing. This analysis use a logit regression. Next. And the result so that for the measurement of poverty with a monetary approach, it can be seen that of the total of self-capture fishery household, there is 80.09% of household categorized as not poor and as many as 19.91% of household categorized as poor or having income below the poverty line. There is a large variation in income for capture fishery house in Indonesia. Ada banyak data rumah tangga yang pendapatannya minus dan ada juga banyak rumah tangga nelayan yang pendapatannya ratusan juta rupiah per bulan. Ini sungguh mengejutkan dan for the measurement of multidimensional poverty, there is 84.74% of households are categorized as non-poor and 70.26% of households categorized as poor. There are three dimensions: education, standard of living, and employment, which are the dominant dimension as the main deprivation in household poverty of capture fishery in Indonesia. The gender of the head of the household has a significant effect on the monetary poverty model, but this variable is not significant in the multidimensional poverty model. Household head by men have a lower probability of being poor than a household headed by women. The education level of the head of household has a significant effect on both the monetary poverty model and multidimensional poverty. The head of the household who does not finish elementary school has a higher chance of becoming poor than the head of the household who finished elementary school. Of the 3 grant program for fishermen, boat grant, fishing gear grants, and business financing grants, only fishing gear grants have a significant effect on the monetary poverty model. Our estimation result confirm that the problem of poverty in capture fishery household in Indonesia revolves around low access to education, access to capital, and a problem with ownership of boat and fishing gear. A problem related to production are indeed the main problem faced by fishermen, in addition to marketing problem. To overcome this, it is necessary to increase the capacity of formal institutions such as a cooperative and joint business group (KOB) with a function to channel credit with easy condition for fishermen and credit service, and not only in the form of money but also in the form of household goods to prevent them from loan shark. Terima kasih. Saya kembalikan.
Thank you very much indeed, Ibu Sufiana. Very interesting piece of work you have done. So this is to complete the discussion of today. We had the one on disaster and the one on the farmers and food security, and now it's on fishery sector. So this is to enrich today's discussion in this meeting room. Is there any excuse me? Is there any question from the audience? Please, everyone, welcome to ask any question. I saw there are two. I will give a chance to Pak Adenantera first, and then the second Pak Budi. Please, Pak Adenantera.
I'm sorry, I didn't lower hand. That's from previous question.
Oh, okay. But you're welcome if there is any question for now. No. No. Okay. I will give a chance to Pak Budi Reso. Please, Pak Budi.
Thank you, Bang Firsa, and also thank you, Bu Tania. So this is an interesting research, and particularly you using the data that not many people has been using. So that is good. Now, however, just want to check with you, because you're using income data, and the way that you calculate income is a bit complicated, given particularly some fisher are sharing boats and so on. So do you have, in the data set, do they have expenditure? If they have expenditure, maybe it's better to use expenditure data. Also because the poverty line in Indonesia is estimated based on expenditure, not based on income. So what would happen is that if you use that poverty line for income, then you got more poor people than it should be. So you basically, in a way, could be over estimate, because income typically on average lower than expenditure in the case of developing country. Now on the second issue, I think probably try to avoid paying too much attention on the effect of education to poverty, because the causal effect is not that clear. Because of the education you are poor, or because of your poor you got lower education. But I think from the data set, when I look, what is more interesting is, for example, a membership of a certain group, or whether it has access to market, meaning that those could be exogenous, could be, the direction could be from the right hand side variable to the left hand side variable. It's much more clearer. Particularly access on market, I think that is a good option. So that is in a way my suggestion. Thank you.
Please, Ibu Silviana, you may respond to the question.
Apa saya bisa jawab dengan bahasa?
Silakan Bu, silakan. You may guess.
Terima kasih Prof. Budi. Data saya adalah data dari survei pendapatan sektor pertanian, bagian dari survei sensus pertanian yang dilakukan setiap 10 tahun sekali oleh BPS. Namun demikian, tidak ada data tentang pengeluaran rumah tangga. Yang ada hanya data pendapatan. Data pendapatan itu dipilah-pilah apakah itu dari pendapatan masing-masing orang dalam rumah tangga, masing-masing individu dalam rumah tangga, kemudian dijumlahkan, juga berasal dari berbagai pendapatan lain dari rumah tangga, apa itu dari transfer, kemudian ada subsidi, hibah, dan lain sebagainya. Demikian, Prof.
I hope that answers your queries, Pak Budi.
Yes, for the first question. On the second question, do you think that it would be better to focus on like access to market, something that is the causal relation is clearly from the right hand side to the left? Because if you focus on, for example, education and so on, so that is could be because of their poor, they don't have a good education. Like having both, you know, it is also not clear what is the direction. But rather than access to market, is more on the location, and so on. It could be the direction could be much more clearer.
Bagaimana Bu? Ada ini yang pertanyaan kedua. Silakan Ibu Silviana.
So sorry, I'm nervous.
It is just suggestion, and you don't have to respond.
This is not the test, Bu. Later on, we will give you the test. So this is just the warming up. So you may want to tell everyone here on the process of your research, then to answer what the Pak Budi questions. Please.
Mohon maaf Pak Budi, apa Bapak bisa menjelaskan lagi dalam bahasa?
Okay, so if I'm using Indonesian, jadi yang kalau saya lihat dari konklusinya, tadi konklusinya menyatakan bahwa hal yang menyebabkan nelayan ini miskin karena pendidikan, karena akses to boat. Nah itu arahnya, arah kausalnya itu bisa terbalik, bukan karena dia tidak berpendidikan dia miskin, tapi karena dia miskin dia tidak berpendidikan. Bukan karena dia nggak punya akses ke boat dia itu jadi miskin, tapi karena dia miskin dia nggak punya akses ke boat. Itu arah kausalnya tidak jelas. Jadi sebaiknya menurut saya yang diperhatikan terutama sekali di sebelah kanan adalah hal-hal yang arah kausalnya itu lebih jelas. Misalnya apakah punya akses ke market, karena belum tentu dia orang miskin dia nggak punya akses ke market, ya bisa. Tapi kalau nggak punya akses ke market, ya ada kemungkinan besar dia miskin. Nah, itu yang mungkin jadi variabel-variabel sebelah kanan yang arah kausalnya itu lebih jelas, mungkin yang diutamakan untuk didiskusikan. That's my suggestion.
Baik, Prof. Saran yang sangat baik untuk saya. Terima kasih. Saya akan tinjau kembali, Prof.
Okay, hope this satisfy everyone. So maybe Ibu Sitiana can go back and have a look after this. Any other questions that would like to raise? We still have 40 minutes until the close of this session. If there is none, I wouldn't want to make any conclusion, because we have the varieties of the presentation of beautiful research that already been done by Indonesian scholars here, that enrich the study and literatures to our regional science in Indonesia. So I would like to thank you, Ibu Silviana, for her presentation. It's very, very good. Let's appreciate Ibu by having a big applause for Ibu Silviana. Right. And on the closing remarks, that I would like also to thank everyone, all the participants of this session, and team on natural resources, disaster, and agriculture. Yeah, this is to me, this is very important, because without this, the sustainable development cannot be achieved accordingly. Without any more questions, I would like to close this session, if I may. And I would like to thank again everyone. Wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.